Come learn about polyploidy, changes in chromosome copy number, and how that was used in an episode of Star Trek Discovery, starting now. Hello, my name is Mohammed Noor. I'm a biology professor at Duke University, and I'm an occasional science consultant for the Star Trek universe. I'm very excited to talk with you today about polyploidy, or having more than 2 copies of all of your chromosomes. This was used in a really interesting way in the season 3 finale of Star Trek Discovery. So let's dive right in. In this episode called That Hope Is You Part 2, the ship's crew find a Kelpien named Su'Kal stranded on a crashed spaceship filled with radiation. Now, despite this bad radiation, Su'Kal somehow seems okay. Dr. Culber speculates that Su'Kal is different by saying, quote, "I suspect he's a polyploid. It's when normal chromosomal separation is disrupted, and it can cause an individual's genes to be affected by their environment." So let's talk about polyploids. Per usual, I'm going to start with a super quick refresher on some basic genetics terms. You're probably familiar with the term DNA. DNA is that hereditary material found in all life on Earth made up of 4 kinds of building blocks that we abbreviate with the letters A, C, G, and T. Now, genes are stretches of DNA that encode some sort of biological information and guide formation of RNA. And genes are packaged together on structures called chromosomes. We humans have 23 pairs of these chromosomes. We get 1 complete set of chromosomes, and thus 1 copy of every gene, from our mom, and 1 complete set of chromosomes from our dad. Now, because we have 2 copies of all these chromosomes, we are called diploid. Di for 2, and ploid for the number of copies of all of our chromosomes. So you might guess what a polyploid means. It basically means having more than 2 copies of all your chromosomes. So does this actually happen? Well, it's very rare in mammals, though it does happen in some specific cells in your body, like in your liver. But there are lots of cases of true whole body polyploidy in other groups like fish or frogs, and especially lots of kinds of plants. So polyploid plants include some kinds of potato, cotton, and strawberry, some of which have 8 copies of all their chromosomes. So how does this happen? Well, polyploidy can sometimes just be an accident as cells are made, or for your gametes, instead of just passing along 1 copy of all your chromosomes, your sperm or egg accidentally gets both copies of all your chromosomes. It can also sometimes be induced by chemicals or even radiation. But is this good or bad? Well, in humans, polyploid embryo offspring are usually miscarried, so that's clearly bad. But in some other species, especially in plants, polyploids can survive and sometimes even have greater tolerance for stressful conditions. This tolerance may be caused by changes in how much RNA some of their genes produce. That's pretty common. Now, that RNA change might happen simply because they have more copies of their genes making RNA, but some genes in polyploids also change how they respond to the environment in making RNA. Finally, in some microbes, if radiation is breaking DNA, polyploidy is thought to provide more, possibly undamaged copies of genes that can help with repair. That's clearly good. Now, there's another interesting outcome from becoming a polyploid. Because of this difference in the numbers of chromosome copies, the new polyploids are sometimes not interfertile with the parent species. So, becoming a polyploid can instantly make an individual be a new species. Whoa! In fact, polyploidy has played a major part in making lots of new plant, fish, amphibian, and other kinds of species. So, tying all this back to this episode of Star Trek Discovery, Su'Kal may be a polyploid in having more than 2 copies of all those chromosomes. Being a polyploid may have resulted from the exposure to radiation, and that somehow he ended up with double the number of copies of chromosomes of a normal Kelpien. I'm assuming Kelpiens are diploid arbitrarily. And like in some Earth species, that polyploidy did not kill him, and it may have given him the ability to resist the radiation on the ship. And fundamentally, it makes him different from other Kelpiens, as we learn that he is in the show. Assuming he's a polyploid, it's possible that Su'Kal is not really fully a Kelpien anymore, but something altogether new. Then again, Kelpiens are an alien species, so that interfertility problem doesn't necessarily apply here. Overall, it's a bit of creative science slipped into an interesting episode of Star Trek Discovery to make an alien different and better resistant to radiation. Whew. Had you heard of polyploidy before? What did you think of its usage in this episode of Star Trek Discovery? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for tuning into BioTrekkie Explains. See you next time!